much for allowing me to be here with you today. Can I move to Florida? I'm so proud of you. I think half of Minnesota already has moved to Florida. Do we have any Minnesotans here, by the way? What? Oh my God. You will admit it, maybe. In Minnesota, we are a state that is wonderful, filled with absolutely wonderful people, but it's a tough neighborhood if you're a conservative Republican to come out of Minnesota. I'm the first female Republican ever to get elected out of the state of Minnesota. Republican, I'm like a way conservative. So this really is a very different thing for a state that has produced Hubert Humphrey and Eugene McCarthy and Walter Mondale and Paul Wellstone and Al Franken. So if you think you have a tough neighborhood, I just want you to know the best preparation I had for politics is the fact that my parents had the good sense to give me 3 brothers and no sisters. So I had no other option. I had to learn how to fight to win and protect myself when I was a little girl, and it's the best thing any member of Congress can learn to do is fight. Fight on behalf of, know what you believe, and then fight for it. Isn't that right? I love the Tea Party. The Tea Party is the biggest, most phenomenal movement in modern times for our political history, because the tent, if you will, that we are under is literally fashioned out of the parchment of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights. We are in love with these documents, and we thank our founders for them. And the best definition that I have come up with yet to define the Tea Party is this. If you oppose the Obama-Pelosi-Reid agenda, you're Tea Party. That's it. Because as you know, the Tea Party is not a political party. It's bigger than that. It isn't Republican. It isn't Democrat. It's not Libertarian. It's not apolitical. It is reasonable, fair-minded people who just want the country to work again. That's it. That's what we want. We want our country to work again. And we believe in 3 fundamental principles. And I don't know Pam. Where is Pam? I saw Pam before. There's little Pam. I don't know what your 3 principles are, but this is how I see the Tea Party. We believe, number 1, we are taxed enough already. Do you agree with that? We are taxed enough already. That is not the answer anymore. Number 2, government should not spend more than what it takes in. Number 3, we should have all branches of government, all 3, judicial, executive, and the legislative, act within the bounds and jurisdictional limits of the Constitution. What a concept! What a concept! Follow the Constitution. Had we done that, we would not be in the pickle that we are in today. As you all know, we're in very difficult straits financially in our country, and every day, if you read the Drudge Report or if you read headlines, we are in nail-biting, nerve-wracking times. Times that we have never seen before. For instance, during the 2008 campaign with Barack Obama and with John McCain, nonstop we heard out of then-candidate Senator Barack Obama that big spending George Bush. And I don't know about you, I agreed with him. I thought that George Bush was a big spender. But let's just go back down memory lane for a minute. In 2007, which isn't that long ago, in 2007 the deficit was less than $170 billion for the year. Less than $170 billion. Now, $1 billion is a lot of money. That was a lot of money. But less than $170 billion. That is less than 1 month under now President Barack Obama. That's the scale that we're talking about. As a matter of fact, in the worst deficit running year under big spending, President George W. Bush, his last year in office, when, remember, in the last 2 years when President Bush was president, who was Speaker of the House? Nancy Pelosi. Who was the leader in the Senate? Harry Reid. So this is what George Bush had to deal with. George Bush doesn't write the laws. That's the legislature. He either vetoes them or approves them. I thought that I would have liked to have seen the White House fight a little bit more than what they did. But in the worst year of deficit under George Bush, the last year, anybody want to gander a guess? About, that's right, the gentleman has it, 460, it's about $458 billion. That's the worst we ever had. In President Obama's first year as president, because remember, what have we heard nonstop? I inherited this mess, right? Are you a little tired of hearing I inherited this mess? Yes, he did inherit a mess. Guess what? All 43 presidents inherited a mess. That's what they all got. He did inherit a mess. But when you inherit a mess, and you inherit, like let's say your spouse, because it wouldn't be all of you, but let's say that your spouse ran up the checkbook, right? So you say, that's it. I'm taking over the checkbook. I'm going to take over the finances of this family. If your spouse ran up the checkbook, would you go out and buy a new boat and put a swimming pool in the backyard and go say, let's take the kids and go to Disney World? That's what Barack Obama did, because remember, he was just whining about $458 billion in deficit, and what was the deficit when he came in his first year in office? About $1.3 or $4 trillion. He almost quadrupled what it had been before. Not only that, he ran up the budget for that year more than you had ever seen, so that some departments saw literally 80% increases in spending. So this is what happened under Barack Obama. And it wasn't just the first year, it was the second year. Last year, it was $1.4 trillion. Actually more if you include the deficit spending for the unlimited credit card that our Treasury Secretary, TurboTax, Tim Geithner, he gave an unlimited credit card to this outfit called Fannie Mae. And they've racked up over $150 billion down the rat hole of that organization. We just had them in front of our Financial Services Committee this week. It continues to lose billions of dollars every single quarter. This is what's going on in our country. This is why you're here. This is why you're not out on this gorgeous golf course today. You love the country and you recognize that we can't continue to go down this road of out-of-control deficit spending and transformative legislation that has so changed the character and fiber of this country, we don't even know if we'll be able to recognize it. Probably one of the most transformative pieces of legislation that's occurred in the last 2 years is the passage of the legislation that we call Obamacare. The government takeover of healthcare. This is the signature issue of Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid. And I think they need to defend this piece of legislation. Don't you? They need to defend this piece of legislation. Barack Obama, 5 days before he took office, made the comment, we are going to transform America. And boy, has he lived up to his promise. Now what we need is a House and a Senate and a new president in 2012. Our down payment on restoring liberty by pulling, by the way, did you notice, pulling that gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hand? She didn't want to necessarily give it up during the opening ceremony, but we won, we yanked it out of her hand. It belongs to the American people. And in that time, the marvelous thing about winning back the House is the fact that we have the power of the purse. We control spending. That's a good thing. The big fight that you've all heard about is how much will the House of Representatives cut out of the budget? Well, I don't know about you, but it has seemed somewhat like an anemic fight so far. The House, to give them credit, have tried to do everything they could, because let me tell you the constrictions that we're operating under. When you look at the federal budget, it's now about $3.8 trillion. 2/3 of that budget, 65%, is considered mandatory spending that we have a very difficult time touching. It's the, quote, entitlement spending with Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And that's on automatic pilot, and right now it is spiking up. That's 2/3 of the budget. The 35% that remains that we can touch, that we could do something about right now in this cycle, is the discretionary portion and defense. Defense takes up half of that 35%, or 17%, and we're fighting 2 wars, and we're having numerous challenges here in the homeland, and so that's difficult to be able to attach that money right now. The other 17%, that's essentially what we're looking at. But again, you have to remember, half of the year has already gone by. So we can only deal with really about 8.5% of the budget. That's why you're seeing the House of Representatives cut what they call $100 billion out of the budget. But that $100 billion is off of what President Obama's proposed budget was. When you hear that it's $61 billion that we've cut, that's off of what was spent, if you compare it to what we spent in 2010. So depending on what your gauge is, if it's President Obama's proposed budget or if it's the 2010 budget, that's why you hear 2 different figures. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, that's why we're at that number. But here's a shocking story that I want all of you to know. If there's nothing else that you remember today, this is what I want you to remember, this next shocking story that I'm going to tell you. And for more information and regular updates, please go to my Facebook site, Michele Bachmann, and sign up, or Team Bachmann maybe it's called. Go there and find out the continuing saga of this story. Become one of my Facebook fans, or join the Twitter account, or go to the website. Because I want you to be informed about what's happening. Because the information that I'm about to give you, many members of Congress still don't know this information. So please get this information out to as many people as you possibly know. So you all are familiar with this bill called the government takeover of healthcare, called Obamacare, right? Right. Okay, and if you remember what a teutonic struggle that was passed in the House of Representatives, the House version of that bill, at about midnight, Sunday night on March 21st. That's when the bill went through the House of Representatives. And that was in 2009. On Christmas Eve, early in the morning, that's when Harry Reid kept all of the senators there. And then at the last second, he slipped a substitute bill under their nose. Remember, we in the House, what was the words that Speaker Pelosi famously said to all of us across America and to us? We